Good evening and welcome to Sunday Live. My name is Emma and I am your host this evening. We're going to continue our mini-series of habits and the things that help us stay close to God. And as always here on Sunday Live, these are just our thoughts, our opinions, our experiences of those of us that sit at the table. Now, the things that we share, they're not going to be for everyone. They're not going to work for everyone, but our hope and our prayer is that as we share, you will experience a little bit of God. It would help you on your journey with God, whether you are just exploring him or whether you know him really well. We hope that this will bless you in some way. Now, you can get involved in the conversation if you wish. You can text in your thoughts or some questions, and you can do that on the number on your screen, 07624 566 261, or you can write them in the chat on YouTube, and a member of the team will do that really high-tech thing of hand me a piece of paper with the question on. So we're really pleased that you've joined us this evening. If you're on the Isle of Man, you already know this, but we are here on the Isle of Man, and there are a lot of bikes revving their engines in the background, so we can hear them really loud. But if you can hear the revving bikes in the background, we apologize. Hopefully it won't distract from anything that we're talking about, but maybe add a little bit of flavor, a little bit of spice to our conversation. But there we go. Right, let me introduce who sits at the table with me this evening. So Adrian, thank you very much for joining me. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
I'm Adrian. I'm married to Nolisa, and we have two lovely daughters, Hannah and Julia, and a little dog, Roxy. And
what is your dog? What breed?
She's a Havanese.
A what?
Havanese from Havana in Cuba. So she's a whopping
Tiny.
2.5 kilograms wet through. Quite funny to see someone my size walking a dog that small, but
yeah. So Adrian, if you don't know him, is really tall, and our cameras are angled so that I don't look
like Gandalf and
like
Frodo.
a little Lego figure next to you. That's what we've got. But anyway, good.
Famous for playing Goliath, obviously.
Yes, obviously, yes.
So the four of us are living here on the island now.
Great. So how long have you been a Christian?
19 years, coming up to 19 years.
Okay. So you've had quite a number of adventures throughout your life.
You could say that.
You've lived in a lot of different countries. So what countries have you lived in, just briefly, and why have you moved around so much?
Well, born and raised in Yorkshire in England, did all my schooling, academics, and as soon as I graduated, my graduation gift was to go to visit my friends in Nigeria, because I had a lot of Nigerian friends, and that's when I fell in love with Africa.
Okay.
Everything changed. So for the first 3 years after I graduated, I was in and out of Nigeria. Then I moved to South Africa, where I met Nolisa, and my children were born there as well. That was till about 2015.
Okay.
So a good stint in South Africa, a good 8 years. Then we did a short stint in America. And then we went to Germany, where all Nolisa's family had moved, spent 5 years in Germany, and then came to the Isle of Man. And we're literally in a few days going to be 5 years on the Isle of Man.
Wow.
So a little bit of...
that's
That's just my side. Nolisa's side is even crazier. But
and that's quite a lot of diverse cultures.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
You've
like
seen the extremes
of diverse culture. So that's really interesting. So what is it that you do for a living?
Okay, well, I've been an engineer my whole life.
Okay.
And I was in manufacturing and companies and factories. And then about 3 years ago, Nolisa and I started a company called Young Engineers, which is we teach primary school children engineering using cool Lego models. So they do advanced theory, and then they apply what they've learned. So they get to see the engineering in action, it's how I learned. It's how I think all experiential learning is great when it's combined with theory.
Yep.
And it's I love it. It's so exciting.
Great.
Completely different to my old way of work. So it's more like fun and play. So
That's great.
yeah, I'm a big kid, really.
A big.
A lot of parents are very jealous of what I do.
Yeah. It sounds like, get to play with Lego.
And have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great. Okay, so I've brought you on to talk about the habits that help you in your relationship with God and help you stay close to God. Mm-hmm. So what helps you stay close to God? What are the practical things?
Well, now, when I first became a Christian, I think the only reference that you did have was a Bible. And that was very much to do with how I interpreted it, how other people taught me. But certainly recently, the last maybe 10 years, my predominant way is to journal, to prayer journal.
Okay.
And I do that as often as I can, multiple times a week. And yeah, that's how I get my heart and my thoughts onto paper, and then of course you get to feel the reactions back, and you journal them as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a prayer on paper.
Okay, so a prayer on paper. So when you talk about prayer journaling, so is that just writing a prayer out? So instead of saying it, you write it. What do you mean? Like, what sort of things do you write down? How do you write them down? Is it like a mind map, or is it a list, or is it a conversation? Like, how do you do that? If someone's never heard of prayer journaling, describe what it is that you actually practically do.
I think, again, it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes it is just me dumping down thoughts,
Okay.
which I suppose would be what we consider normal prayer.
Yeah.
Not the shopping list kind, but just like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm interpreting from what's happening around. And sometimes it's just a case of sitting and waiting, and then writing sentences.
Okay.
And then it's actually got to now where I can start to sense, is it the Father nature coming through? Is it Jesus, or even the Holy Spirit coming through, which is very exciting. What's more exciting is when you go back and read through it all. Yeah. Because then you can really start to see, wow, when I was talking about that, and then days or weeks later something has happened, and that just fills you with this unparalleled, like, wow, God is so real in those.
So it's, in that sense, it would be similar to if someone journals normally with life, and actually you look back at, say, several years ago, and you think, oh wow, that's the job I was doing, or that's the stuff that was going on. Similar, but you get to look at all the things that you talk to God about and see what's changed, what's grown, what's different.
And of course that builds your relationship. I suppose it's similar to like if you were in a relationship in marriage, when the more depth you go into, the more you experience that circumstance, and then you live through it, and then that builds the character. So I think that's probably why I started it really when I was actually in Berlin and just commuting. And you don't really want to be praying out loud. People will be wondering. There's a lot of people that talk to themselves on the underground. So I just started to write them down. And you just start to realize that wasn't my thought. And you just become more and more aware of it. And then maybe that Sunday you'll hear a message or a sermon, and it will be on that topic. And again, it's like, wow, this is a living God. It's not I have been saved many times through the Bible, but that's a historical account of his nature, and now you feel like you're experiencing a real life. And then that obviously led to other giftings which pop up when you get unctions for people or things, and then you're introduced to that, and it's just like, wow. So that's the main habit, if you call it, but it's just such a blessing.
Do you do it every day?
I certainly try to,
Okay, how long do you, like time-wise, how long do you roughly spend doing it?
30 minutes or so.
Okay.
So I try to get up early enough to be able to do that without interruption and then get ready for my day.
Yeah.
So unless something does occur where I don't have that time, but yeah, the majority of the time I'm up. I try and sit outside, which we've been able to do for the last few weeks, which is just epic. You sit in the presence of nature. I think that helps me a lot as well, if I can be around nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, if not, I'm just indoors and I'm doing it as often as I can.
Great. That's really interesting because I do a little bit of prayer journaling. Mine isn't part of like a day-to-day habit. I think I definitely wish I did it more, but mine, the way that I do it is mine's a conversation. So I'm literally writing how I would speak to God, and that's how I prayer journal. So yeah, as I would speak it, I am just writing it instead, which means the thoughts that I often write down have a clarity to them that I don't have when I speak, because I can't write as fast as I speak, obviously. And so the thoughts that I write are very deliberate, are very processed. My word choices, I mean, I'm a verbal processor anyway, and I'm someone that can be quite choosy over my words verbally, but when I write, even more so. And so I just write what I would ordinarily verbalize, but it's a lot more succinct. It's a lot more kind of like bullseyed in my thoughts rather than potential waffle I might say out loud.
Do you find you feel like a relief as you're doing it though? It's like you are able to, just the thought process of getting it onto paper almost diffuses something as well.
Yeah, I think so, because it gives me a clarity that speaking out loud doesn't always give me, that as I write, it's like I can. So if I'm praying about, I don't know, a situation going on in my life, but I choose to prayer journal it, I can maybe see things or understand things differently because I'm writing as opposed to speaking. Yeah. And there can be something, I genuinely think the spoken word when it comes to God is really powerful, but so is the written word. Yeah. And they play two very different roles. So it's interesting how you prayer journal in a completely different way to how I prayer
that's
journal.
Just how it came naturally to me.
And I do it not because someone taught me how to do it, but it just seems like the obvious, most natural way for me to do it. So clearly it's not a one size fits all kind of scenario.
Well, if you think of the Psalms, that was probably the psalmist that was prayer journaling. They're writing down what's on their heart with answers.
Yes.
Don't forget, it's not just a one side, and that's then done for music. So worship is prayer journaling. Yeah. So when you listen to the anointed music, it's a conversation, and that we are now able to sing. So I think everyone's just got their way of expressing that intimacy. Yeah. And that's what makes it so powerful, because someone could read my stuff and they'd probably think it's gibberish, or they think, oh, that doesn't seem, that's not who I understand. And for me, it's just like love letters. It's just like when I go back, I've got piles and piles of them. And you go back and it's like, wow, that's when God introduced that to me. Yeah. And now I'm living in the full maturity of that. So, that's for me, that is something I would not want to give up. Yeah. So if I couldn't do it that way, I'd find another way of doing it. Before I go to bed, I'll be like, look, I've got 8 hours now. Can we do this whilst I'm sleeping maybe? So yeah. Great. I love it.
Good. Okay, so prayer journaling. What else helps you stay close to Jesus?
Well, obviously being in a Christian community helps, because you get to pick up on what everyone else is experiencing, and obviously messages, and like I've mentioned, worship. I love listening to worship.
So you're talking about church when you say Christian community, you're talking about church?
Yeah, so specifically church. Of course, you've got groups of friends as well, which, again, you're getting a feel of what's going on. So it's amazing when you meet with someone that they're experiencing something similar to what you're experiencing, and then you can speak it.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm very blessed to be married to someone who's also faith-filled. So me and Lisa, when we do general talking, we've learnt over the years that that's a much more comfortable way of us praying.
Okay.
Than what you would probably consider a traditional, if there is such a thing. We don't sit eyes closed, like take it in turns. That just didn't come natural.
Yeah.
We have done it. Certainly if like people close to us have needed help, then we will intentionally go into that kind of prayer style. But from us and a family, we realized that when we were talking about something, and because it's coming from here, we would get the same results, if that makes sense. We'd be talking about, we need breakthrough in this particular area, and then something would happen, and it would be like, wow. And then you kind of read, if 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, then I'll be there. So it kind of does make sense. I don't think it needs to be this super strict. If that works for people, I know that they like to be focused, intentional.
Yeah.
Like when you're in Bible school or children's school. But yeah, it just comes more naturally for me and Lisa to talk with that intent.
Yeah.
But without the actions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so intentionally talking about the things of God, the things that you're hoping for him, than maybe the things that he's doing in your life. So you're not talking general conversation. It's a very deliberate, intentional conversation.
Yeah, and it's obviously, again, it's exciting when you've both had a individual sensation encounter, and then you come together at the end of the day and you share what's happened, and Lisa's also shared something.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, can you believe this? And oh my goodness, I was also... And then that just amplifies. So now even when you're talking, it's just with this additional faith level.
Yeah.
And then that just brings that peace that you're united in. And then you just observe what happens. And then you're excited to celebrate when that happens. And you do it with the person that you were sharing it with. So it kind of it accumulates. I suppose it's like a positive snowball effect.
Yeah. So if someone isn't married, how can they create that sort of thing? Like, I'm aware not everyone on this planet is married, right? But how can they create, or who should they create those types of... Now, it's not going to replicate what you and Lisa do because you're married, and that has a...
Yeah, we're obviously together.
Yes, yeah, and that has a weight and it has a different slant to a relationship. But if someone's not married, but they're thinking, I need to do that type of intentional conversation with someone, but I'm not married. Who? How can... Or is that like a thing for married people?
No, I don't think so. I think the benefit of being married is you're with them all the time, and you've obviously got an intimacy level which is usually beyond just friendship.
Yeah.
I can talk about stuff which is really, really heavy on my heart without thinking it's going to be weird.
Yeah, and that's the difference in being married.
But
for sure.
I mean, when I have conversation with friends, we have the same impact. If they're sharing their heart and I'm sharing my heart, we're not holding hands and with eyes closed. We're having a faith-focused conversation, and then again, it's exciting when they meet you next time and say, "Oh, you'll never believe after we did that, then this happened." So I think find someone who is like matching your faith level on some aspects. Obviously, you're not going to find it with everybody. But if there's something which is like heavy on your heart, and share it with someone that's going to be able to receive it and give encouragement or give guidance. And just having that trust and that connection. So it can be a best friend, it could be someone that you trust in a church environment. Could even be, and nowadays it's online. So just someone that's, again, intentional about the faith of a particular situation. And I just think you'll just see God open up opportunities. And then you'll share it with more people.
And that's the beauty, actually, of being a part of a church community, isn't it? That
more opportunities,
like there's
yeah.
more opportunities. You're surrounded by people who, even with the fundamentals, you're in agreement with, that you all love Jesus and that he died
Yeah.
for you. Like there's a fundamental baseline that you all share, and it breeds opportunity, doesn't it, for encouragement and to inspire, but also to challenge and bring those mutual friendships together. And that's one of the really amazing things about church. And you might find that you gravitate towards someone that you wouldn't necessarily ordinarily gravitate towards. And that is
Yeah.
the beauty of church, isn't it? That there's such diverse people, but we all have the same baseline of we all love Jesus.
Exactly. I mean, as long as it's on that solid foundation,
Yeah.
and of course you've got people with all sorts of experiences. I mean, recently, when we can get into this a little bit later, but it's usually if I'm praying for someone, I get very enthusiastic, because certainly if I'm feeling something, and you can kind of get caught up in that emotion, to put it a better way, and someone who was very graceful approached me and said something along the lines of, that what you do is wonderful, but be careful not to like go too far in one direction. And it's not as a rebuke, it's a loving correction, so that the next time you're in that situation, you're just a little bit more mindful, and is this really me that's speaking, or is it my desires?
Yeah.
And all it did, so since that awareness, anytime I'm in that flow, I just almost step back for a few seconds, and if something's really, really burning, then I can, all right, I confidently know I can share that.
Yeah.
And it just helped love people better. I wouldn't have had that if there wasn't someone that was willing to come and say, look, I understand what's happening, maybe look at doing it this way.
Yeah.
So again, you can feel almost like the fatherly love in that direction.
Yeah.
And that comes from being around people, like you say, who's got that foundation.
Yeah.
They're not trying to shut you down, they're just saying, hey, maybe we do it this way.
Yeah.
Try it like this.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think the more you can be around people who have got those intentions and that heart, it's just growth.
Yeah.
It's like on steroids, honestly. It's wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay, anything else? Another thing that helps you, another habit?
Other habits. I like, I've mentioned it now, I like praying for people. I like praying when I get sensations inside, so I get promptings, if that's the way of saying it. And I like to act on that, and then you see the blessings flow. I mean, Trevor shared it a little bit this morning, where he was in a situation he would not have chosen, in a hospital bed, and not what he's wanting to do. And he had something which was pressing, and the lady that was looking after him, he shared it, and she was touched. She was blessed by that.
Yeah.
And again, you get to see, I think that's a good habit, is to be able to see how God works in people around you.
Yeah.
And whenever I felt something specific, I've never regretted sharing it with someone.
Okay.
And if you don't share it, it's not the end of the world. Initially, I used to beat myself up about it, like, oh, I could have done this, could have done that. But actually, sometimes the timing isn't right.
Yeah.
So again, just use it as an opportunity to go back to God and say, hey, next time I might need a little bit more, not necessarily a kick, maybe a little bit more.
Write it in the sky for me, God.
Yes, yeah,
A little bit
and
more
then
obvious.
can you do that? Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me more than once. So
Okay, so when you say promptings, or you kind of feel like there's something you need to say, so I know that you mean that God is speaking to you. I know that that's what you mean, but how do you know it's God? What do you mean promptings? Is it like a random thought that drops into your brain and you're like, oh, that's God, but how do you know that's God? You said about kind of feelings and sensations.
Yeah.
Talk me through, what is that God speaking? Is it you? How do you know it's God? How does it work? Give me the logistics.
Wow.
Come on, Mr. Engineer. Give me some logistics as an engineer.
The process flow. Well, again, it happens in different ways. But your kind of litmus test, if that's the right word, is you want to know, is this something which you believe God would be wanting to communicate? It's usually love. It's usually encouragement.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be coming with "thus says the Lord" and the Old Testament way. That was more of a protective rebuke, whereas now it's more of a, hey, this is the good news.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have multiple ways which God speaks to me. They call it words of knowledge, but it's not audible voice.
Okay.
I certainly don't want to pretend that that's the case.
Okay.
Usually with healing communication, I will sometimes sense on my body the particular area that needs healing.
Okay.
And that sometimes doesn't go away. So the urgency of prayer is usually, if you want to call it, selfish, because I'm feeling a pain in an area.
Like an empathy pain
exactly,
type of
yes.
thing. Yeah.
And that was something which I needed someone else to teach me. That's what it was.
Okay.
So I actually heard people teaching on those, and it was like, oh, maybe that's why sometimes I experience this, and this is the habit again. The next time, for example, I could be feeling perfectly fine 1 minute, and suddenly my knee just starts throbbing.
Okay.
It's not that I've twisted it or done anything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, maybe someone here has got a injured right knee, and then you'll ask a question, and someone will be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I did it this morning, and now your faith just goes poof, and their faith goes poof.
Yeah.
And you pray for it, and it could be healed, which is obviously the desire that you want, but actually that person is like, wow, God brought you and gave you that, and actually it makes them fall more in love with who God is.
Yeah.
So that's one way. Another way would be certainly a thought which you know is not your own. And that's kind of also what happens in the journaling.
Okay.
Sometimes you're like, wow, there's no way I would have written that. And then just in general, you just have compassion. That is one thing which God really grips me with. It's an emotional response which is really drawn to someone in particular. And again, that's the ones where if I have not acted, I go and I not beat myself up, but like, oh, why was I a chicken? Why didn't I just go and say that? Because you could really feel the heart of God.
Yeah.
And I've got a little story about how I tried to avoid that.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So this was actually in Germany. And this is when I didn't speak any German, or very, very basic. So obviously God gives you an impression, and now you have to speak to a complete stranger, and everybody usually there is very focused. They don't want to interact with other people. If you approach somebody, they wonder why. It's just the hustle and bustle of a busy city. So I'm on the train station, and I look across. I'm not even opening myself up for this in particular, but I look across and I lock on this one lady, this African lady, and I just have this huge compassion about wanting to reassure her of that she's a good mum. And that's not a random thought that you just have. It's like, wow, that's an intentional, and there's an emotion. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that here. I'm not going to do that here. And then you start going through if she gets on the same train as me. And of course, she gets on the same train, and I go left. I'm just trying to avoid it. And then this thing is not going. And then it's like, well, if she gets off at the same stop of me, which is a slim to none chance in a big city, but again, you get off and there she comes out. And then she starts walking towards me, and I thought, I've got to get rid of this. So I just say, in my most broken German then, I'm really sorry, do you speak English? And she responds with, yes, you do. And I'm like, oh, God. That's like the first, woo! I said, this may sound really strange, but I really feel I need to encourage you about you being a mom. But as soon as I start to say it, my eyes start filling up because I can feel that flow. And this person looks at me and says, oh my goodness, I've just been listening to a podcast on parenting because I was wondering if what I was doing was right for my child. And this lady just like looks like, how would you know that? And I'm kind of looking at my watch as well, let me tell you. And I get to share very briefly the goodness of God with her.
Yeah.
But then I found out she's actually a faith-filled Christian. Mm-hmm. And she just starts saying, this is amazing. And we kind of, not really hug it out, but we kind of like, wow, thank you so much. And I walk away and I'm like 6 inches off the floor. It's like the best feeling. And you realize that you've just been used as a vessel there to just give. I mean, I don't know the history. It could have been a day that she's felt like that. It could have been months.
Yeah. And it actually doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Yeah, she receives it. Oh
yeah.
My goodness, God is with me in my parenting, and even if I've done it wrong in my sight, it's just a case if you're a good mum.
Yeah.
And we ended up meeting each other at the platform, and we ended up being friends, and we would go visit the family.
Wow.
And that all came around, and she tells people, this is the creep that came and kind of, she actually saw me at the first station.
Wow.
So I didn't know this, but she told the story later that she saw me at the first station looking, and she thought I was trying to get her attention because I was trying to hit on her. So when I got off at the station, and then she sees me approach, she actually, as I intendedly thought, she thought, why is this weirdo coming up to me? So it was actually a faith step for her also to receive it. So that's again just one of the ways. But I've never ever regretted crossing that chicken line, crossing that. There's something which and the more I've grown in it, the more I don't try and resist it, because you just realize this is God flowing through you. This is blessing them. You get blessed. Your faith goes up. Their faith goes up. And I've seen miraculous healings come from it. So, why I still sometimes resist is probably just me. It's certainly not lack of intent.
Yeah. Do you ask God to, I'll use the phrase speak to you because I think that's possibly the easiest point of connection. Do you ask God for that? Yeah. Or to communicate with you. Do you ask for God to do that, or does it just happen?
Both, okay. Yeah. So certainly when I'm wanting to pray for someone, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, God, please give me something. Draw my attention to something. It can be something that they're wearing. It could be something which is around them. Yeah. And your eyes will just lock on something, and then and then you get kind of like a confirmation feeling inside. I keep pointing to here because it's certainly not here, because logically you would, oh, really? Is that the root? No, you can't do that. It's like, you've got to let it flow. And then sometimes, like I say, you'll be just minding your own business, and you'll either feel something or sense something. Certainly the compassion grips me. I can be talking to someone and suddenly I'll get very teary-eyed, and I'll realize I need to share this with you. Yeah. My kids kind of laugh when that happens. But again, it's a good habit. It's a good habit to see God's goodness.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed with it, and it's a blessing to be able to do it for others as well.
Yeah.
And of course, they then have this story. They have this encounter that God knows who they are.
Yeah.
And that is priceless.
Yeah.
And most Christians have had a similar experience, and it was life-changing for them.
Yeah.
That could be their salvation story. God knows. If God came and met me where I was and saved me, pulled me out. So that could be that person's experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never know. This lady could have changed her whole parenting style. Not because of what I said or the podcast. It's like, well, God believes I'm a good mum.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're a perfect, not going to make mistakes, but her heart is to love her children.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are just a few examples.
Yeah, and there's definitely, when it comes to God communicating to you and you sharing that, you call it the chicken line, or it's the pain barrier, isn't it? That most people you have to be able to push through that. And that is easier when you focus on the things that you say to people are encouraging and loving and caring. Then even if you hadn't felt that from God, even if God hadn't communicated that to you, who doesn't like to hear that they're a good mum?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, people that aren't mums maybe don't, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be a hurtful thing, and that's an important part,
Exactly.
an important balance as well, isn't it?
I mean, I see it in obviously the children that I'm teaching. The moment that you compliment what they've done, or say good job, or give them a high five, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I can say, who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
So when it's on such a personal level, it can transform them.
Yeah.
It's transformed me. I mean, when people have shared stuff with me that I've only shared, even in a journal, it's like, oh my goodness, it is real. You know, sometimes you just need that.
Yeah.
But if you can, I've done it with people who weren't Christian.
Yeah.
And that really starts open conversations.
Yeah.
So, and then you find out that was part of their salvation journey.
Yeah.
And that makes it even more special.
Yeah.
I've accidentally healed someone, and it led to their salvation.
Is that a brief story? Can it be a brief story? I feel like you can't say I was part of healing someone and then not share the story. But if it's a super long story,
No, I can make it a short one.
Be on a cliffhanger, and maybe you have to just come to church and ask Adrian yourself.
Okay, this was a colleague of mine in Germany, young lad in his early 20s, big into his gym. And I noticed that he was protecting his arm, and he'd injured himself in the gym. And again, my German is not amazing, but actually this person could speak a bit of English. And I, hand on heart, thought he asked me to pray for him. Honestly, lie detector test, he turned around and I thought he asked me to pray for him. Actually, he asked me to try and hit his muscle because it was in spasm. Okay, I don't know how I misunderstood that. But
was it in English or German that he said?
Apparently he said it in English. But I heard, will you pray for me? And he turns around. And as I went to put my hand on his back, I was still a foot away, and he just flew forwards. And he turned around and said, what did you do? I said, I never touched you. I said, I felt this massive whack on my back, and wait a minute. And he jumps on the floor and starts doing push-ups, and he was completely healed.
Wow.
And then I said, but you asked me to pray for you. He says, no, I asked you to, and I said, so you asked me to hit you, but I didn't hit you. And then the rest of the day, he's looking at me like, what just happened? And then I kind of shared with him a little bit. And then over the course of the next few hours, I remember him stood and said, I am now having to question all the years of my life where I did not think that this was real.
Wow.
And that for me was a key point. And the rest of my time in that company, we had faith-filled conversations.
Wow.
I prayed for his children when they were sick and they got healed. They now pray as a family around the table. He now has been to church.
Wow.
And that wasn't necessarily someone seeking. He was not a believer in anything, but God literally invaded his life.
Yeah.
So he met Jesus as a healer.
Yes.
So again, he would defend conversations that he would hear about whether healing is for now, he said, yes, it is for now. He did it to me.
Yeah.
You know, because he's got that conviction.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if God wants to communicate something, then the best way to do is just make yourself available.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've never regretted doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
So hopefully that was still considered a brief
Yeah,
explanation.
yeah, absolutely. Before we move to the next habit, just to be really super clear with people that are watching, you didn't heal him. God healed him. God just used you. It's not you. You are, I'm going to say you're not special. You are special, but you're not that special. I don't know. I'm just going to dig a hole, aren't I?
Yeah, keep going.
Dig a hole.
Keep going.
It wasn't Adrian that healed him. God just used you.
Yeah, and that's the phenomenon of it.
Yeah.
So
you're not magic.
I'm not Mr. Miyagi.
No.
I'm not rubbing my hands together.
I just want to be clear that people might think, oh, you're like this super special magic person. You're not. It was God that healed him. God just used you to do it. Just to be clear.
Yeah, so he gives the instructions.
Yeah.
Obviously with the Holy Spirit, is you can now go and do this, and then the work of the Holy Spirit comes through you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so amazing, because there's no way you could physically do that yourself.
No, you can't heal
just
people.
by not even touching them.
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
even touch. So that's why it's such a blessing to yourself. When you see something like that, there's no logical explanation for it.
Yeah.
Which is why I've got a lot of respect for people who do have a scientific or medical background, which also pray for healings, because they've got to overcome the logic of it.
That's balancing logic and faith, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that really is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's but again, it's just you detaching. Someone told me that the inside of the water pipe is always wet, but in order for it to function, it has to flow.
Yeah.
But at least you're also wetted by the water. So it's kind of like let it flow through you, and you get to experience it as well.
Yeah.
But it's with that intention. Whatever's at the end of that spout is the intention of that water flow.
Yeah.
But you get to experience it, which is why it's so amazing. If it was just to sit back and watch, it would also be cool.
Yes.
But the fact that he chooses to use us to be part of it is just like, that's him.
Yeah.
Like, he could just say, right, sit back and watch.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing. Or, actually, why don't you try it out?
Yeah.
So.
Wonderful.
Next.
Okay, next habit. Have you got another one for us?
We're pulling out everything, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at how much time, which ones are the last ones. The key one,
Go on.
which is I suppose a tough one for everyone to experience, is one of forgiveness. I find it is a blockage quite often.
A lack of forgiveness is a barrier, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's tough.
Yeah.
Because that's where you try to justify your emotions around it. But again, the moment that you can forgive someone, and the standard is a high standard, but the standard that Jesus set when he was nailed on the cross. So he's just had this awful experience, betrayal. Well, everything leading up to that point is probably the worst that anyone could ever have had. And he literally says, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. And that initially was like so bizarre, because of course they knew what they were doing. They've plotted it, they've intentionally done this thing. But actually, if they knew who he was, they wouldn't have done that. They were acting on their understanding.
Yeah.
And he could see through all of that and say, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. That was the standard. So you can experience legitimate pain and betrayal by somebody. And the moment you go into that, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing, it aligns you. It sets you free. You're not looking for an understanding. You're not trying to justify it. And then your heart towards that person softens. And then you start to see again miracles happen. So there's a lady which operates incredible ministries in Africa, and she describes it as unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yeah.
So that means the opposite. If you are forgiving someone, then you're releasing life.
Yeah.
And that's again, this is an emotional one, because if Jesus can forgive me for what I did, even now, not even before saved, if Jesus can forgive me for what I did, and he says, but Adrian, you didn't know what you were doing. That is so powerful. He can see the root cause of everything. And he's saying, actually, you didn't know what you were doing. Because if you did, then you wouldn't be doing this. So that's his default. That's his new standard. So it's really, really tough. And I know that there's people out there which have had such horrendous things happen to them. And they may even still see the person. And I'm not at all pretending it's easy, but the only way in my experience to actually be set free of that trap, because you're actually a prisoner to that person or that situation or that circumstance, is to just say, this is a good prayer. Jesus, help me to feel what you felt so that I can forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And that's when that peace that surpasses all understanding is going to come upon you, and even if it's just a little crack, the more you do it, the more you're going to be softened.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you now have to trust that situation. It just means I'm not going to let you dominate how I'm going to experience life. And I think the forgiveness is that letting go. Yeah. And the person might not even receive it. But you've done your part.
Is the kind of forgive them for the do not know what they're doing, when we say that, is that not letting someone off the hook for their actions? So I'm just thinking about even scenarios in my own life where people have made choices and their choices have affected me, hurt me, done things to me, affected me, and me saying, help me to forgive them for they do not know what they're doing, that kind of feels like I'm letting them off the hook for choices that they clearly, deliberately made.
I see it a different way.
Okay, yeah.
I see it you unhooking from them. Because if you're continually held captive by what that happened, then they're actually restricting you. Unforgiveness is like, actually, you're not going to influence me anymore. Yeah. So you're being left off their hook. That makes sense. Let off their hook. So then that scenario no longer can have as much influence on you. They're going to get dealt with for their actions, but guess what? He's going to maybe look at them and say, forgive him, he didn't know what he was doing. It's the classic scenario of a bully is probably someone that's being bullied. So they may have had a terrible childhood, which then grow up and say, hey, I don't want to be oppressed anymore. My defense mechanism is to oppress somebody else. Yeah. And then that could just be in this horrible, vicious circle until someone says, actually, this guy's just reacting to how he was treated. If I can forgive him because he didn't know what he was doing, it diffuses that person's impact. Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, that's why it's the ultimate standard. Yeah. And I don't think anyone apart from Jesus could have said and done that. Yeah. But we want him to say that about us when we've made a mistake. Yeah. So we kind of yeah, please forgive me. I didn't know what I was doing, even though I probably did know what I was doing. And he's like, well, let's go to the root cause of that. And that is, again, a beautiful thing about the prayer journal is you're thinking you're addressing the foliage of the issue when he's going right to the root cause.
Yeah.
And actually, let's look here, because this is the symptom. This is you expressing yourself from pain or lack or fear. Well, let's go right back to this point, because you've probably forgotten what this was.
Yeah.
And that's how good he is. And I think, again, that's why ministering in a way of just being a flow, you can release someone by making them feel God knows who they are. And remember, it's kindness that leads to repentance. And I think unforgiveness is just a big stumbling block to that. And look, this is not something which, this is not a habit as in, oh, I can do this all the time. This is a habit of, I've seen the benefits of doing it. I need to get to that point as quickly as possible, and I need help doing it.
Yeah.
But just like a good habit with regards to a good eating habit, sometimes you need, don't take the chocolate brownie. You know, it's like, but no, actually, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough one. And there's probably going to be a lot of like, but, and that's why I can only say, look, this is not my standard. This is the standard Jesus set. Yeah. Bring it up with him. So, yeah. And he'll show you what he felt. I mean, how could he have said that?
Yeah.
You know. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think with the example of Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing, that Jesus says on the cross, just before he dies, really. And I know when it comes to forgiveness, what has worked. Now, I've never heard that slant that you brought, because I always went to a slightly more general picture of forgiveness and what Jesus did. So I wasn't thinking, when I think about forgiveness and how I get to a place of forgiveness with people, someone, whatever the situation might be, I look at it more generally. So not at the words, but the fact that he prays for them. So that's the habit that I take. Yeah. So it's not for me about the words that he prays, it's the fact that he prays. And that's how I've always seen it. And I know when I've thought about times when I have felt betrayed or hurt, or things have happened in my life, and the way I get to a place of forgiveness, because you're right about that quote, it's like drinking, a lack of forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting them to die, right? Lacking forgiveness destroys you. It hurts you. It tears you apart. It wrecks your relationship with God. Actually, the other person, as far as they're concerned, can be living scot-free if they wanted to.
You probably have no idea what you're going through.
And so for me, I knew I had to get to a place of, I need to pray for them to be blessed.
Wow.
And that was what God really, that's what God really challenged me about, is that I needed to pray for them to be blessed. Wow. So I remember the very first time, and I stood in my room and I said their name. I said, God, would you bless them? And I remember bawling, just crying my eyes out, thinking, I don't want you to bless them. And this comes back to what I said earlier about the power of spoken word. Yeah. And that my heart wasn't there to actually want blessing for them, because I didn't. But it was the
freeing
act
for you.
Yeah, the act of going, actually, you know what, my heart isn't there yet, but the only way I can get to a place of forgiveness is to say, God, I need you to bless them. They need to have the best life. possible. They need to know your blessing. They need to have the wonderful things. They need to have joy. They need to have all of that good stuff that actually we really want for ourselves. And I had to pray that for them so that I could be free. Now, to be clear, I didn't pray that once and was like, done.
Best buds, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the situation that I'm thinking of, that person is no longer in my life, completely removed from my life. I have nothing to do with them, and that is a good thing. That's a healthy thing for me. But I had to spend months asking God to bless them. And eventually, my heart got to a place of, I mean this. And then I knew I was free. When my heart got to a place of where I actually mean it, I want good things for you.
That's good.
My heart was free. And I had, that barrier was no longer in place. Now, throughout that whole thing, God was so gentle, so gentle with me and so loving. He wasn't distant. He was in it. And so it's interesting that we both have the same example from Jesus hanging on the cross, but for you it's the words. For me it was just the action of Jesus in his dying moments. The people that crucified him put him through the worst torture, and he just prays for them.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's hard. It's so hard. And
which again, I think, using a similar, if I can, what you were saying now about prayer is not me.
yeah,
That can't, you can't really say, oh yeah, I conjured up it has to be coming from something within, which is way beyond reasoning. And even other people who could be wise, loving people say, why, you don't need to do that, why would you do that, they've done this, they've done that. But it is that, but like the old, what would Jesus do? It's like, think about it, every time he's walking here on earth, he's encountering people which have done something against him, not knowing it was him. And what does he do? He goes and blesses everybody.
yeah,
Because he's trying to set them free. And I think I love what you've just said. You're actually setting them free. And what everyone needs, everyone that hung him on the cross, everyone that beat him up, everyone that's done stuff to me, to you, to everyone, that person needs an encounter with Jesus. Because if they have that, they won't be doing those things. And they would understand the forgiveness they were. And that's actually what and again, it sounds very cliche, but I know what kind of person I was like before I was saved.
yeah,
And I know the kind of person that I'm growing into be now. Again, it wasn't a switch.
yeah,
There were certain things which is how I knew I'd been saved, because there was physical evidence of the way that I spoke, the way that I acted, that all changed. But yeah, I think it's the wonderfulness about this is it's a journey that he's doing with you.
yes.
He's not like, meet me over there.
Yeah.
He's like, come on, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. We are rapidly running out of time within this. So I'm just wondering, we've covered like
Quite a
shed loads of ground, from really practical things that we can do, that you do, that help you stay close to God, and then like some of that deeper stuff that deals with the core of us. But I'm just thinking about people that are watching, that aren't yet Christians, they haven't necessarily made a decision to be in relationship with God. Based on some of the stuff we've spoken about, what would you say to someone that doesn't yet have that personal relationship with Jesus? What would you say to them?
I suppose the simplest way would be to kind of get out of your head and ask for Jesus to show up, ask for him to show you that he's real. Don't try and think of it logically, but just be aware of situations. I'll point to the Bible a few times because you can read stuff in there and it feels like it's speaking to you. You feel like it was written for you, even though it was written thousands of years ago. And then just keep your eyes and ears open. And of course, there's going to be logic and everything. Oh, is that just coincidence? But then you go back to him. Was this you? I'd like to see more. And that's that relationship. That's that intimacy. If you think about it in terms of a courting act, you know, was the glance of that lady towards me, or was it, well, put yourself in a position where you could experience it again?
Yeah.
Okay, was that person really being kind? Or put yourself in a position to see if it is again. And because he is a crazy romantic, he wants you to experience that freedom. He wants you to be set free. He's going to pursue you. But he's not going to pressurize you. He's going to pursue you. And then the moment that you're like, okay, show me. And I know so many people that got saved from saying that. Yeah. Literally, if you are real, show me. And then something happens and they just melt inside. And it's not necessarily a prayer. It's not necessarily, it can be those, of course, but it's that heart response to recognizing the goodness of God, the love of Jesus. Get into a community of people that believe that, even if you don't initially. Surround yourself with people who are displaying those things. And again, but always go with the God, I want a relationship with you. I don't want it through someone to you. I think that's kind of key. You can really think, oh, wow, that person spoke so well. They've got all my answers. No, you really need to have that relationship yourself, because that person's going to let you down. Yeah. So, and when God lets you down, it's because you've misunderstood something. And that's another journey of, you need to heal me of that, because it looked like this happened, but you're good, so help me, heal me, hug me, just like a child would. So, very simply, just ask, open yourself up, and just enjoy how he's going to woo you.
There you go. There you go. And I actually think that is a challenge for even people that do already have that relationship with Jesus, that they would ask God to show himself. I think that is something that we can all do. And I hope this evening has raised your level of faith, maybe even raised your expectation of who God is, of what he can do. And, there are, something that really strikes me about the conversation that we've had is that actually this isn't a one-size-fits-all when it comes to the habits and the things that help us stay close to God. And so I think it's about finding the things that help you stay tethered to God and do them. And it's not to shy away from doing new things or trying new things, but to take the things that help you stay tethered and do those things, do the things that help you stay close to him. Now we have our Sunday Live pack, a Bible, an introduction to the Bible, and then a pack that just gives you a little bit of information about us as a church. So if you are exploring faith, you want to know more, maybe you're already a Christian but don't yet have a Bible or access to one, then we would love to gift this to you. So if we can bless you in any way with any of that stuff, you can get in touch with us on that number 07624 566 261, and we will find a way to send this to you just as a blessing, no strings attached, but just as a way to help you in your faith journey. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to Adrian for joining me at the table tonight. We will be back on the 6th of July at 7:30 p.m. here on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video, and then you will get the notification of when we are next broadcasting. If you live on the Isle of Man, I hope you have a wonderful, safe TT, and for everyone to have a blessed June. We will see you here next month on Sunday Live. Good night and God bless.